and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Our spotlight tonight shines on technical and vocational education and training, the landscape here in Malaysia. Our TVET sector has long grappled with fragmentation, it's lacked standardised accreditation, it's faced perception challenges, and it's struggled with industry relevance. So can the Madani government's National TVET Council overcome this historical inertia and the bureaucratic mess that is TVET to build a more cohesive and effective framework? Joining us on the show to discuss this further is Howard Lee. He is the DAP Member of Parliament for Ipoh Timor, recently appointed as a member of the National TVET Council. Welcome to the show. Congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you, Melissa.
I understand that you, earlier in your career, had worked in the F&B business as a chef, and I just wondered if we could start there, how that first-hand experience shaped your views on vocational education and training.
Thank you, Melissa. Good to be back. In fact, I still have a restaurant, and every now and again I still get thrown back in the deep end where there is a need, there is a must. So I do still spend some time in the kitchen, but not often enough. Now, I've always been of the view that TVET policy needs to be made in conjunction, in collaboration, and definitely including people who are trained from the system. The system meaning people who have gone through or graduates to technical and vocational education and training. So I think it was a welcome move, a pleasant surprise when I was appointed by the Deputy Prime Minister, who's the chair to Majlis TVET Negara, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, of course there are many experts who have spent years researching TVET education, but I think I'm the only TVET graduate and practitioner in the council. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Of course, I don't want to be the only one there.
But how does that inform how you view TVET?
Okay. Not very good at talking about my own experience because it is a global issue.
Sure.
You know, as my view is very simple. My view on TVET is it needs people who are practitioners, number one. Number two, I view that the importance comes from the training structure and system needs to come from a demand side approach rather than a supply side approach. Let me break that down. A supply side meaning TVET institutions, the government or statist policies, meaning government who wants to provide TVET training, are often zealous and eager, or eager and overzealous in telling you what we have. This is what the government's doing. This is what our institution is doing. But it misses the entire point. It should be putting more resources in really understanding the demand side, meaning what do the trainees want?
Okay.
What does industry want? What does the global economic situation demands of the ecosystem? So I hope that I can be that intervention to be able to knock some sense into the system. And of course, it is a welcome move to have someone who's willing and able to say these uncomfortable words.
So for those who may not be familiar with this, the Madani government's National TVET, Majlis TVET Negara National TVET Council, what is it there to do? What does it aim to achieve, and what does success look like?
It's there to inform and advise on policy interventions, policy amendments, and I think if I'm not mistaken, it's been announced that on the 7th and the 8th actually of June, the Prime Minister is going to be announcing the National TVET policy, of which it was before my enlistment into the council, but I think the council had a big role in advising the formation and the design of TVET policy for the nation. And of course, it is one of engagement, it is one of involvement of all different sector and segments, and it is a departure from a lock, stock, cut and paste of the German model. It's a departure from a lock, stock, cut and paste of the Chinese model, the Korean model. It is finding our own pathway. Because each and every, the German model and the UK model came from its history. its culture, its history of guilds and boards of different professions and skill sector. And of course, the Chinese and the Korean model had a very, very different history to it. So we have a very different history to our needs and our demands. So remember what I said about the demand side approach? So I think what is good, what is ideal, and the best would look like where, and this, I'm going to offend a lot of people, where we will see a transition of current TVET institutions, rather than being training providers. TVET institutions will be accreditation partners, and it will be industries, factories, businesses, corporations will be given the burden and responsibility, and I would say the very, very important role and job of being the training provider. So training provider will be commerce, businesses, manufacturers, and corporations. Accreditation will be down to TVET institutions and government. Right. So there'll be a kind of sand shifting, or I would even say a different model altogether.
So industry training, much like kind of internships or on-the-job training, and then TVET institutions are the accreditation values. Can you tell me what the current model is? I mean, what's the diagnosis right now? How does for those of us who may not be familiar with the TVET landscape and ecosystem, what is it right now, and what's your diagnosis of it?
Well, currently it's a hodgepodge of lots of different models that all work. For how long it works, how sustainable it is, how expensive it is, and what's the efficacy of it, that remains to be seen. But we've heard of lots of different terms. You mentioned just now, you've got on-the-job training. We can call it also academy and industry. We can also call it, some call it 2U, 2I, 2 university, 2 industry. So you have that accreditation system already out there. And then some say that it's the German DVT model, and then you've got the UK NVQ model, which I am a product of. But I think the key is to understand what are the circumstances that led to having these structures in system. There is no one right or no one wrong system. I think right now, what I think we should do is we should go through a 2-year period on top of what has already been available to the market and to people who want to take or to dive into this path of TVET, and see what is right and what is by and large, because it's very easy to talk about to make it all uniform, but industries are not uniform. F&B is different from care. Care is very different from MICE. MICE is very, very different from microchips and semiconductors, all of which will require some kind of a skill training. And we can call it segmentation, we could call it sectorial approach, whatever it is. I think the TVET Council is here to be that facilitator into perhaps forming a segment-based or sectorial skills council, which is something that I want to bring forth as an idea, which we don't have yet.
So how much industry consultation and stakeholder engagement does the TVET Council, National TVET Council, have? Because we talk about, so you talked about making sure that the TVET graduates we produce are graduates who are well trained, have the right qualification, and is what industry needs and wants. The demand side that you talked about. So are you hearing what industry wants? Are they telling you what kind of TVET graduates they want?
Being the new kid on the block, I will steer clear of critique and criticism of what has been done and what has not been done, purely and simply because I don't know. I've read minutes, but that's all it is. And I'm sure members within the council will have done extensive engagements with industry players. And even before I was a member, I've been doing lots of work. And thinking back in 2018, 2019, I was a member of the State Cabinet in Perak, where I've already started a program that is still in play right now of academy and industry, on-the-job training. We have a program called modular training, modular industry training that is already, that is still ongoing. Now, I think just a couple of weeks ago, just literally 3 days after I was appointed, I was already on a third of a series of meetings to link private TVET institution with private factory, who's part, who both, well, the factory is in the photovoltaic industry. The TVET institutions want to go in to be a key player in the photovoltaic industry and its training. So I put the two together, and we are now talking about coming up with a one-of-a-kind photovoltaic industry vocational training system that is completely and totally independent of government. And it's doable, and it's being done. So engagement comes in many forms, in and outside the context of the council, but I'm hoping that whatever outcome of these engagements can be fed and will continue to be fed into the council so that it has some kind of a pathway to be translated into becoming policy.
I really am intrigued with your demand side approach, because I think there's something there. But if you were to take a look at the current public perception towards TVET, I think that's where the challenge lies in trying to encourage young Malaysians to take the TVET route instead of the kind of traditional academic route. How does the council plan to tackle some of these issues, these long-standing perception issues? Unfortunately, I mean, society continues to overlook, undervalue and minimize vocational education. How do you turn that around so that your demand-side approach works?
Now, I'm not going to talk in technical jargon. I'm going to give you very solid examples of things that has happened in the past, but not in Malaysia. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, there was a massive craze or drive that was started off by a chef called Marco Pierre White, who's now seen as like the Sifu of the Sifu in celebrity chefery, if you want to call it that. Marco Pierre White is the Sifu to Gordon Ramsay. Now, at that particular juncture in British, technical vocational history, the UK has a history of not investing too much or not having too much status intervention in anything outside of academia. So in order to drive the need, because there was a sudden increase in MICE, travel and tourism, and food and beverage demand at that time, industry started to talk to film producers, docu-series producers, in creating documentaries on, literally real-life, reality shows of chefs throwing things in the kitchen and, turning, glamorizing chefs and F&B. So that came the genesis of this upping the value chain or gentrification of food and beverage and chefs and hotels.
Is that why we now have celebrity chefs and we consider them celebrity status?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, we must look at the methodology behind it that gave rise to this new gentrification. Secondly, I also, exactly the same. I mean, you can see many Hong Kong TVB soap operas or series back in the 90s, early 2000s that really lend credibility to firefighters, chefs, etc., etc. And from that, you can see a sudden uptick in intake in vocational training programs in these professions. Now, what I'm proposing and what I will be proposing to the Deputy Prime Minister, I have a meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister on the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, of which is, it's a media approach. Anything from creating docu-series, documenting the successes and the relative comfort in economy some TVET graduates may get from having 90-something%, not just retention, not only employment rate, but also the decent wage that they get. Highlighting that, letting people know, because I don't think people know, right? And secondly, and this is real stories, but I think fiction has a role documentaries have a place, and I would even say fictional soap operas have a crucial, I would say, place in this entire ecosystem of inspiration.
Right. So the storytelling, the
Absolutely.
narrative of what TVET, the potential of TVET is not being told, and that's what you want to change. What sectors do you see the most opportunity for TVET? You talked about the UK in the 80s, 90s, and the boom of the F&B business, right? Where do you see it happening in Malaysia that TVET can leverage?
I'm not really that au fait with entering the game of prediction and projections.
I didn't ask you to bring your crystal ball today.
But I will say that, you know, areas that I have been working on over the years have been, of course, travel and tourism, MIC, and F&B. I would lump all that in one service-based industry, what I call social infrastructure. You know, where there are theatres, where there are restaurants, where there are, you know, all this social infrastructure is when you see, you know, people getting entry-level jobs, working up the value chain, right? So that's one. So MIC, travel and tourism, and food and beverage. So that's one. The other one is, this is a bit controversial, the entire value chain from critical minerals extraction right through to microchip and semiconductor, even down to advanced packaging, and even up to E&E. So you know, if I say it's E&E means I'm focusing on just this side, the midstream upwards, but I'm actually talking about critical minerals straight through to E&E. So that's one value chain. The entire value and supply chain. So that's one thing, because we in Malaysia are quite fortunate in the sense that we have stakes in pretty much every single part of that entire value chain. So that's another part. Put that in that compartment. Of course, Malaysia is, by 2030, is going to be an aging society. My great state of Perak is already an aging state, but there is always an opportunity behind because I don't see aging as a threat, and that needs to be changed, because there is an opportunity. We can up productivity of society if we were to get aged members of society back in the workforce by choice. But also those who need to be cared by virtue of the fact that there is a correlation between agedness with dependency for care. So there's, you know, there is definitely something that we need to look into in terms of, and the first part and the first stop that one needs to look at in terms of empowering that ecosystem, that economy, the care economy, is training. And what training? Vocational training in the care industry. So the last one. I think urban planning, mobility, future urban landscapes will have a large part to do with modalities of mobility. So I would say train, public transport, ART, BRT, all this will, if and when the government does invest into these infrastructure, will definitely require large numbers of technical and vocational workforce. And I've started conversations, in fact, a couple of days ago, to draw some parallels and linkages and do some interlinkages between academic institutions with TVET players in these industries.
Okay, so the work has begun. So what is TVET in the age of AI? When you talk about all of these sectors, are they AI-proof, future-proof? How do you create and think about a TVET sector that is kind of agile and responsive enough to change to whatever, you know, will come in the future?
We live in quite a unique age because we've got plenty and far too many, I would say, game changers all happening at the same time. You've got quantum computing, you've got AI going on, you've got, you know, the age of the next, you know, the microchip, 3 nanometer, 1 nanometer, all in the horizon. All this kind of crazy stuff that's happening, in a good way. But things that are happening that are revolutionary, that are crazy, generally strike some degree of fear in people's hearts and minds. You know, what if AI take over all our jobs? You know, Elon Musk keeps saying that. I'm more of a, I would say I'm a more optimistic kind of person because there are limitations. Yes, AI can write songs now. AI can write beautiful poetry now. AI can even, you know, cook a decent meal, apparently. But no one can cook like me. Let alone no computer can cook like me.
So vocational education and training can be made AI-proof, future-proof, right?
You see, I wouldn't use the term AI-proof. I think vocations and vocational professionals, it sounds like an oxymoron, but professionals who are trained in vocations and technical work must also, should also, and are probably the most au fait with using AI because it's a tool. AI is a tool, and vocations, people with vocations, are used to using tools only if it's framed and given and presented to them in the right way. Do not be scared by AI. It is a tool, and vocational professionals are more than adaptive to tools like AI.
Okay, so let's come back to the National TVET Council. I want to ask you what you think is different this time, because there are skeptics out there who say, or who might question the effectiveness of the council in enacting any kind of meaningful change, maybe because they've seen, you know, these types of promised reforms fail in the past before, the historical challenges within the TVET sector. So what's different this time, and why would the council succeed this time around?
I wouldn't go and project that it will be a success because I'm a mere member of a very large council. But let's put it down to this. I'm a practitioner. I'm being heard. Not only am I a practitioner by virtue of the fact that I hold a qualification, an MVQ level 4 in hospitality, catering and food management, but I am a trainer. I have a restaurant. I am still in the industry. And I am also, by virtue of my involvement with the state government, I am a member of the executive board of Invest Pair Up. And not only do I feel, my schedule is filled by people who want to see me and by introductions made by virtue of the fact that I'm a member of the council. For me to be able to contribute real, when I say filtered, I don't mean, you know, filtered meaning it's gone through the understanding and filtration of someone who is a practitioner in a technical vocational profession. So I think at the very least, I can promise, I can provide my personal commitment to add some innovative or at least some refreshed views and insight in policy making in TVET. And it will definitely be through getting industry involved, getting players involved, getting people who are in the industry, rather than purely leaving it to academic and theoretical discussions of what models and structures should be.
Right.
And I think one key thing is, one thing I was very, very happy to hear in the meeting, the first meeting I was at, was that there is definitely an agreement. We shouldn't and we will not lock, stock and barrel, copy and paste a model, because that's the surest way to failure. We are using, I would say, the best of all the systems and structures out there and models that are out there to craft our own path. And that I'm very encouraged by.
Okay, so I won't ask you what, to speak on behalf of the National TVET Council, but just for you personally, being a kind of TVET product yourself, how, if I were to talk to you a year from today, have you back on the show, how would you measure any kind of quantum of progress, or, you know, what would you consider your success in this role? What would that look like for you?
The amount of time TVET trainees spend in the classroom versus on the job. The higher the amount of time spent in the classroom, the better I would judge myself to have been in terms of productivity. The higher the amount in the classroom, the lesser the success for myself. That's number one. Number two, the degree in which TVET institutions, as we know it today, have transitioned towards accreditation and as opposing to training provision. That's number 2. Number 3, how many factories, corporations, businesses are involved in training provision with the assistance of TVET institutions as an accreditation partner. And I would say these are the 3 indicators that I would put for myself. And of course, I am a measly, little, insignificant, inconsequential Member of Parliament. But at the very least, I would like to be able to see entire courses being, let's say, for example, there are 5 key parts to a solar panel. If we can really make sure that there is a course that would enable any single person who wants to go into the photovoltaic industry, they can just go on this course that is provided by every single component manufacturer that is in Perak or in Malaysia. They would go in and they would be a transferable member of the ecosystem and the value chain. And they can work in anyone. And this course will be provided by, independent of government, accredited and accepted and acknowledged by the government, but provided by industry themselves. Now that would be a fairly decent item on a CV to put in.
That is an encouraging vision. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, and thank you for your time. That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.